So I didn't talk about any of the actors in part 1 because I knew this was going to be a 4-parter and part 1 was already running long. Nearly all the child actors have shown up at this point, so now is a good time to talk about them. I'll save the adult actors for part 3. When I first saw this, I had never seen any of these kids before, but I did notice a few of them in other things later. Glancing over their IMDb pages, nearly all of them have done pretty well, but I'm only going to talk about the ones I've seen elsewhere. I'm sure a lot of you recognize the unfortunately late Jonathan Brandis as Bill. This must have been what put him on the map because, like I said, I'd never heard of him before this, but shortly afterwards he seemed to be everywhere. Off the top of my head, he was also in Neverending Story 2, Sequest DSV, and according to his Wikipedia page, he was one of those child voices at the beginning of Pet Sematary. I couldn't pick him out though, but he was in a lot of things. I'm sure you've seen him in something. He was an amazing actor. Ben was played by a kid named Brandon Crane. Again, I noticed him in a lot of things afterwards. The one that sticks out to me is that he played a recurring character on The Wonder Years.
What are you gonna do with stink bombs? Simple. When Becky gets up to speak, we set those babies off. Kapowie!
Yeah, he got a pretty good amount of screen time, but not a whole lot of dialogue. Not to mention one-shot parts in a lot of other TV shows and commercials. I like this kid a lot, he's adorable. Beverly was played by Emily Perkins, who I've only seen in one other thing that I can remember, but it really left an impact on me. The year before, she was in another TV movie called Small Sacrifices, where a mother, played by Farrah Fawcett, tried to murder her own children. This girl played one of the surviving children, and there's a scene where she's on the stand recounting the event.
Who shot you?
My mom.
And it will just rip your heart out and stomp on it.
And do you love your mom?
Yes.
This kid is such a good actor. Whenever a character she's playing is sad or scared, I totally believe it and I just want to hug her. And yes, that is Seth Green as Richie, if you didn't recognize him through the Buddy Holly glasses. And this is another one who I'm sure I don't need to tell you about, but other than this, I mostly know him as Oz from Buffy.
I am my thoughts. If they exist in her, Buffy contains everything that is me, and she becomes me. I cease to exist.
Though, of course, he's also involved in Robot Chicken and does a couple voices in Family Guy. Anyway, the kids are all great in this movie, and I'm glad most of them got more work afterwards. They definitely earned it. Okay, back to the movie.
And the next thing you know, I'm feeling my way to the toilet.
Speaking of Richie Tozier, he's all grown up and now he's a famous stand-up comedian. I think he was a disc jockey in the book. He was also a coke addict, which wasn't included in the movie.
You guys are great. Good night. Buenos Aires. Yeah, this is Richie Tozier. Who's this, Elvis?
Anyway, he gets the call.
You're doing fine. You can handle this.
He starts making plans to go back to Derry, but the memories come flooding back.
Help! Help!
They felt its breath, hot and horrible, against their faces. But at that moment...
Listen to the story that Bill is telling. There's a bit of foreshadowing here.
They had learned to be strong together. They had beaten the dragon with their magic stones, and nothing would ever be the same again.
Also, this is the same story that Georgie was bugging him to tell him in the beginning.
The magic stone story.
Yeah. Bill's gonna leave this one-horse town and meet Sandra Dee and all the other babes in Hollywood.
They end up talking about what they want to be when they grow up.
I want to be a train conductor and see the world.
I want to be the first rock and roll singer from Derry. Either that or an impressionist.
A painter, maybe.
And they're actually pretty close to the mark.
Can I tell you guys something? If you guys laugh, I'll never...
But Bill isn't feeling it, and he ends up addressing the elephant in the room.
The other night, in Georgie's room.
What on earth?
Well, he would have if he didn't get interrupted. It turns out that their dam is on the verge of causing all the drains in the town to get backed up.
Whose brainstorm was this, eh?
I showed them how it's my fault. It was my idea.
Me too.
Yeah, I was in on it too. And me.
I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
On the upside, they must have built a pretty good dam. In any case, it turns out that there's been another murder. This time someone who Beverly knew. So Officer Nell tells them to all stick together.
Your hands on it?
Which is gonna end up being good advice for this group.
What do you think Bill was gonna tell us yesterday? I don't know.
The next day, Richie and Stan get confronted by the bullies in the cafeteria in response to what happened at the theater.
All right, Curly and Mo. Beep, beep, Richie.
If you haven't picked up on it yet, beep beep is what the kids say to Richie when he's going overboard and saying things he shouldn't. Because he tends to do that. There's a lot of fun slang in this movie that the kids just made up. Makes it really quotable.
Hey, way to go, Banana Heels.
Speaking of which, if he hadn't stopped to say something clever, he might have avoided that.
Tozer!
Anyway, he goes downstairs to find the janitor.
I had a little accident in the cafeteria.
Yeah, Beverly's dad isn't quite that creepy. This is the first time it appears as something other than Pennywise in the movie. It happened a lot more in the book. In any case, remember how the kids were all freaked out while watching I Was a Teenage Werewolf? I guess it really stuck with Richie.
Beep, Richie!
It's pretty bad when even Pennywise is telling you to tone it down. Speaking of which, you don't snag someone like Tim Curry and then not use him every chance you get.
They all flow down here.
In the basement. There's a werewolf.
I noticed you didn't mention the clown. Notice that everyone is laughing except for his friends. Well, except for Stan, because he hasn't come in contact with it yet. You could tell before that he and Richie were both in that boat earlier. Poor Richie obviously didn't get much sleep that night.
I remember the day I took that photo. One of the best days of my life.
And now we go back to Mike Hanlon as he's remembering how he met the rest of the group.
Lucky 7.
In Show and Tell, he was showing some vintage photographs that had been taken by his dad that documented the history of Derry.
One Sunday back in 1930, there was an Easter egg hunt here. But the ironworks exploded, and all these people got killed. It supplied all the water to the town until a big disaster back in 1900. 253 settlers just disappeared without a trace.
And big surprise, it's a dark history.
Give it here.
Of course, Henry Bowers and his gang go after Mike after school.
Oh, what boy? The nigger here lives down the street from me and my daddy, isn't that so?
I'm glad they didn't shy away from the N-word, since it's Henry Bowers saying it, therefore the movie obviously isn't condoning it. Context matters. I'll never forget seeing a movie about segregation in the 1950s, where the TV edit omitted every instance of the N-word. That's kind of missing the point.
I'm just glad I'm not the only one who saw something.
Meanwhile, the rest of the kids are finally talking about that elephant.
It was the werewolf for Richie because he saw that dumb movie. Maybe it's some kind of evil being that can read our minds and take the shape of stuff we're afraid of.
Ben gets it.
Such a thing just isn't empirically possible.
Stan, however, doesn't believe any of it. His denial is going to be a plot point later.
It's some kind of monster, and it's right here in Derry.
And now Mike and Henry Bowers' gang show up, and they've decided not to run away this time.
The Losers Club. yeah, the Losers Club. I got bones to pick with you. Today I want him, so buzz off.
Showdown at the quarry.
You're through, Bowers, get out!
You stuttering freak.
And wouldn't you know it, Bill throws the first stone. Holy crap, Bowers is getting his butt kicked. But he throws some rocks back. That did it, Ben's pissed off now.
Holy smokes!
And that pretty much ended it, even if Henry doesn't want to admit it.
Get out.
What if I won't?
I think the 6 of us could put you in the hospital.
7.
This is also foreshadowing in a way. This won't be the last time this group comes together to defeat a force of evil.
I'll kill you all. Get some new material, champ.
Henry Bowers was really just a practice run.
Thanks.
Fun fact, as artsy as this scene looks, they actually shot it this way because they were running out of daylight, and this was faster than setting up different shots of the kids talking. Still looks cool, though.
Want in?
Yeah, I do.
Hey, we're 7 now.
And the Losers Club was formed, aka the Lucky 7. Anyway, Mike shows them his photo album, and there's a picture of Pennywise from 200 years ago.
Come on. It's just a drawing. Now look. Here he is again. The same man.
It's not a man.
It.
Title drop. And once again, the photo album is messed with and one of the pictures comes to life.
I'll kill you all.
Great speech from Pennywise here that is pretty much it in a nutshell.
I'm every nightmare you ever had. I am your worst dream come true. I'm everything you ever were afraid of.
Poor Stan is still in denial despite seeing it with his own eyes.
You saw it too.
I didn't want to.
But you did.
Yes. Okay. That's what you want?
Yeah, that's what I wanted, you turkey.
I love Bill's reaction. Stan really only admits to it to shut them up. So they quickly realize that they need to do something because trying to tell adults wouldn't do any good.
Help me.
Then in this really heavy scene, Bill calls it out.
You killed my brother George, you bastard! Let's see you now. It's scared of us, you know?
And that's why it doesn't just outright kill them. For whatever reason, they are the only ones who can fight it, and it fears them.
I want to kill it. Help me.
Bill has a vulnerability to him, but it's especially apparent in this scene where he's standing alone. He's not alone for long, though. Back to present-day Mike, he had a visitor stop by while he was asleep. Meanwhile, Stan Uris and his wife are watching TV. You can tell this originally aired on ABC since they're watching Perfect Strangers. I forget what it was in the book, but it was some game show.
Got a letter from Mom today. She asked when we were going to make her a grandma.
Does she know I'm a sex maniac and you prefer Perfect Strangers?
It turns out that Stan and his wife have been trying to start a family but haven't been able to. I like the book of birds and binoculars next to the phone. We don't find out what sort of career Stan ended up in, but he's definitely still interested in birds. Either way, he gets that call from Mike.
No, I can't absolutely promise that.
And doesn't take it well.
But I'll certainly consider it. I think I'll take a bath.
Now?
According to the commentary on the DVD, they intentionally put a lot of weird-looking objects and decor in Stan's house to imply that he's grown up to be kind of eccentric. But Stan goes to take a bath, and that's when the memories start. They're about to practice their aim, and Stan is getting ready by reciting the Boy Scout motto.
I think this is crazy.
It turns out that they all have pretty bad aim.
Don't let that damn clown take us one by one.
Beep, Richie.
Except for Bev. You go, girl. In fact, as an adult, she gets away from her abusive boyfriend by beaming him in the head.
It's like it's supposed to be Bev.
So they plan on fighting it with the closest thing they can find to silver bullets.
Mother's earrings, baby. Solid silver.
It'll work if they believe it will.
Lucky 7, Stanny.
Said I was in.
I'm with my friends, right?
Before going into the sewer, they show their solidarity by each taking a little hit off of Eddie's inhaler. They showed their solidarity in a slightly different way in the book. Anyway...
Yuck. Tastes like battery acid.
Remember the line that Richie just said. Stan clearly doesn't want to do it, but he relents. They all go in, but of course Henry Bowers and his gang aren't going to make it easy.
And guess what? They're not coming back out?
The other two are like, what is he looking at? I've been watching too many Hellraiser movies. Those hooks are making me nervous. Henry's gang splits up, with one going a different way so he can get the kids to run in Henry's direction.
Don't mind myself, Henry. What are you afraid of, huh? The boogeyman?
Party hard, hard.
Meanwhile, the Lucky 7 has the right idea and decides to stick together.
No stragglers.
But the kid from Henry's gang gets his first view of the deadlights, which is the last thing he'll ever get to see. Meanwhile, Stan is lagging a bit, so Henry and Belch grab him and drag him off. Meanwhile, the rest of the Lucky 7 have followed this tunnel to what appears to be the heart of the place. And now they notice that Stan is missing.
Before you die, I want you to think about every rock you threw.
Henry has lost his shit now because he is planning on murdering all of them, starting with Stan. But then the deadlights come and it grabs Belch. And nothing of value is lost. I actually like how it is currently being represented as a light passing through pipes where you can only see it through the holes. It's simple but effective. It kind of reminds me of the shark in Jaws and how it was usually represented with music and sometimes a dorsal fin. And now it's coming back again. Notice that Stan sees the deadlights but gets away before looking too long. However, Henry Bowers shows what happens when you look into them for too long. It chases Stan, but he manages to get back to his friends before it catches him.
It's coming! It's coming!
It passes right over them. They catch a little glimpse of its true form, but they all manage to not look into the deadlights. The room fills with some kind of fog, so they all hold hands so that no one gets separated.
Okay, whatever happens, hang on. It's not as strong as I thought it was, or it could have killed us just then. We have to resist! Georgie?
And now is when the mind games start. None of them work until Stan is tricked into thinking he's holding hands with Pennywise and he lets go. It realizes at this point that Stan is the weak link, so naturally it goes after him.
Be afraid. You all taste so much better when you're afraid.
Bev, the stones!
I just picked up on that. Bill just slipped and called the earrings stones, as in the story about magic stones he'd been telling earlier. That was foreshadowing this scene? I see what you did there, movie.
Oh, you are priceless, brat. I am eternal, child. I am the eater of worlds and of children.
And here's where the battery acid flavored inhaler comes into play.
This is battery acid, you slime!
Eddie manages to make himself believe that it is battery acid enough that it basically becomes battery acid while he's spraying the monster with it. And while it's distracted, Beverly beams it in the head. But before she can get it again, it disappears into the drain. Not a very convincing effect, but whatever. Bill isn't giving up and grabs its hand, which only results in pulling off the glove and letting us see something a little closer to its true form. They think it died off screen, but none of them is totally convinced about it. Notice that after they've gotten out, the rain has stopped.
Swear to me.
Bill makes them all promise that if it turns out that it isn't dead, they'll all come back to finish the job.
I swear.
Swear. I swear it.
They all agree. Once again, Stan almost doesn't.
Yeah, swear.
I swear too.
But in the end, he agrees as well.
Swear.
Stanny?
Back in the present time, Stan's wife goes to check on him to find out that it finally got to Stan and he couldn't take it anymore. The end of part 1. Once again, if you haven't seen it, go and watch it before I get to part 2 of the movie, which will be part 3 of my video. Yeah.